In today's video, we're going to talk through a new card grading app that was released on the iPhone, as well as off the back of that, how some of these influencers are doing a really poor job looking after their own followers and their own customers with regards to the information they are portraying to them. Now, I've spoken about this sort of stuff in the past, but there's a few things I saw off the back of this app, as I mentioned in my news video from the other day, why it is very dodgy and disappointing to see. Now, to give you some context, this app is called Optic Edge. It's fairly new in the last couple of weeks from my understanding. And as you can see on screen now, apologies for that little lag, you can see they've done a lot of advertisement. They've got a lot of influencers that are following them, supporting them. So please check it out to get you some context on this itself. But essentially, it's an app where you scan your raw cards, and it uses AI technology to try and give that card a grade. Now, the whole point of this is to then try and tell people whether or not your card is worthy of sending this in to like PSA or BGS as an example. Now, on face value, you having common sense have probably raised a few flags already on this. Like, how can an app, just by looking at a photo, determine whether your card is a 10 as an example? Or how does it actually truly, understand consistently that your card is going to grade that a certain way, okay? Now, me, being the person that I am, before I made this video, I went and downloaded the app and tested it out with around 20 different Pokemon cards across different phones with different cameras and different accounts to see how well this thing worked. It actually worked quite poor. The only consistent thing about this thing is how inconsistent it actually was. The same cards got different grades no matter how many times I used it, which is really poor to see, but not surprising, right? Like I said, if you've got common sense, you don't expect something like this to work the way it does. And as I've explained many times on the channel in the past, this sort of stuff is really exciting for the industry because we want more technology, because that brings more innovation, that brings more disruption, which means we as collectors and as customers get more value. So I was really excited to see this, but then was really disappointed once I actually started using the app because it didn't work anywhere near how it was described, right? How it was intended to work. Now, the one thing disappointing with this is not just that it works very poorly, it's also the amount of money that they charge. Now, I can't see it on the screen right now, but basically the yearly fee is around $75 USD, which is a crap ton of money. But then also it's about 15 bucks a month or then $9 a week, something ridiculous like that. So that's a lot of money. And what's really disappointing about this, and obviously the app itself is quite poor, so I would say, avoid it if you can, because it doesn't work as intended, right? It's a piece of crap. Avoid it. If you want to see for yourself how it actually works, test it out and you'll come to the same conclusion as me. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because the way these guys have advertised their product is they've got a lot of influencers that they've got to support them to try and get customers on board, okay? As you'd expect from a new business. But this speaks to a few issues that I've spoken about in the past with the hobby around how these influencers are often, super willing to line their own pockets at the expense of their own followers, right? They're trying to, deceive their own followers to try and make as much money as possible. Now, I'm not sure if this sort of stuff is intentional from these guys that I'm about to flag right now, or one in particular, but, you can watch this video and you're going to see for yourself. Now, this guy, Roger Rips, that you can see on screen now, basically did an advertisement for these guys, and it was very clearly a paid advertisement, and I'll get to the reasons why I think that is the case in a second. And again, I'm not here to take money out of people's hands, right? I'm not trying to grill this guy for trying to make some money. I'm going to grill this guy for the way in which he did it, okay? Now, to give you some context, Roger Rips, basically, he's got a pretty big following. He's got over 30K followers on Instagram. He's got 24K subscribers on YouTube, and then his big following is over there on TikTok, right? He's got 100,000 followers, which is a crap ton. So he's got a big reach, and because he's primarily a Pokemon collector, this sort of stuff is hitting kids, right? It's impacting kids. And that's what concerns me. I'll get to that point in a second as well. But the video I want to play for you is this one right here. So I'll play and then we can talk to it afterwards.
Should I get my cards graded? You don't know how many times I asked myself that question. I even bought one of these. It just takes way too much time. I think I found an app that will save all of us a bunch of time. I bought these yesterday and I really didn't know if I should get them graded. Let's scan them in the app and see what grades they get. The app is called Optic Edge. As soon as you're in the app, you can start scanning your card. I'm scanning my Rayquaza VMAX Alt-Art. After you're done scanning, just look up the card, and then the app will start grading your card. For our first grade, we got a 9.3. The app also tells you how much your collection is worth. Just to see how accurate this is, I graded my moderately played Blaziken. It came back a 5.3. If you guys choose to use the paid version of the app, use code RogerRips. If you use my code, it'll be discounted to $5 a month for 3 months.
So you can see that he uses a few keywords in that, right? He talks about how it's going to save you a lot of time. You don't need to use, your microscopes or your magnifying glasses. You don't need to use a centering tool, and it's going to save you a lot of time. And it's accurate because his Blaziken said it was a 5.3. It was moderate play. That seems fair. But like I just explained to you, when I use this thing myself, I found it to be incredibly inconsistent. If you read most of these comments as well as reviews elsewhere, you're going to see the same thing. And if you're going to go ahead and try this yourself, you're going to see the same thing. So this guy, he's basically telling his customers to go out there and use this sort of thing. And I keep saying customers, I mean followers. He's telling his followers to go out there and use this and use his code so they can save some money. He's basically saying, guys, you should be using this. You're going to save time. It's going to be accurate. And you're going to use it to try and save some money so you can send in only the good cards to PSA. Is essentially what he's implying here. Right? And you read these comments and you say, Daniel, okay, well, who's going to listen to this guy? He's got a big following, okay? He's got 30,000 fans on Instagram. He's got over 100,000 on TikTok. That's a lot of people. And then he says things like this: best grading app out there. It's the future. And it's like, no shit, Roger, that it's the best app out there. But it's because he's the only one doing this. Right? So firstly, you're a bit of a weirdo for saying that because that's really dumb. But then also you've got people down here saying, way to go, I need this. I think there's someone down here that says, I only downloaded your app because of you, Roger. Let's go. That's disappointing to see. And it just shows the influence that these people have on getting people to follow up. Now, Hobby Shark has caught him out. He's one of the first guys that put this in touch with me. So I'd seen ads, but Hobby Shark, raised this with me as well. He's basically calling him out, asking how much you got paid for this sort of stuff. Now, I'm not sure if I already said in the video, but I'm not here to like call out influencers or anything like that to try and take money out of their hands. The problem is that these guys, a lot of them, either are too naive to understand the impact that their words have on the people that are watching their videos, or two, they don't give a shit, right? This guy is an influencer. He needs to understand that he influences people when he puts his stuff out there. So when he says, this app is really cool, it's going to save you time, all this sort of stuff, people are going to follow and start using that. And you might say, Daniel, what's the problem? Well, this guy's got 100,000 followers, right, on TikTok. Because he collects Pokemon, you can probably bet that most of those, at least half of those, are going to be like young kids, okay? So those kids are going to see this, they're going to use this app, they're going to pay the money for the app that doesn't work. They're then going to get some basically lies from the app because the app's going to say this card's worthy of a 10 as an example, or a 9.5 or something along those lines. They're then going to pay money to send that card to PSA. And because PSA is actually going to look at the card, or at least you hope so, the card's going to come back less than what he expects from the app, right? Because the app is only looking at a photo. There's so many things that impact the way the app works, right? You've got different phones, you've got different cameras, you've got different angles, different lighting. All this sort of stuff is going to impact on what the card or what the app tells you that the card is, right? So they're going to having wasting money on the app, wasted money setting the card to get graded. They're also maybe going to, off the back of the grade the app tells them, they're going to list cards on eBay and say, I think it's gem mint. And the customer's going to get the card after purchasing and saying, hang on a minute, it's not gem mint. Like, yeah, there's some things in there and people need to be careful regardless, not just trust what the app's saying. But the point I'm trying to get to here is the impact that these influencers have on the people that are watching, right? They need to understand that their words carry weight. They need to start doing the right thing by their followers rather than just chasing the money. This guy, maybe he hasn't done this intentionally. Maybe he truly doesn't understand the impacts his words have. Like I explained, I think it was in the influencers video where I spoke about how, Mojo Sports back in the day, or maybe like 6 months ago, before the Marks Card stuff happened, praised Marks Cards. He basically said, Marks Cards, he's running a family business. This is the kind of stuff. This is the real hobby. You need to value this sort of stuff. You need to support these kinds of people. He said that, right? He didn't truly understand this Marks Cards guy. He didn't understand how his business operated. And at least you'd like to hope he didn't, right? Because Marks Cards ended up doing what he did. So he thinks just because he's on camera, he's trying to do the right thing by Marks Cards. He wants to try and be a nice guy. He says this thing, thinks he's just saying words, but he's not just saying words, because then people, watch the video of Mojo Sports. They like Mojo Sports. They like Jay. So they say, Jay, because he said that about Marks Cards, I'm going to go and submit with them. And then what happened with Marks Cards? He stuffed up all his group submissions, right? People got ripped off. People lost their money. People lost their cards. That sort of stuff. All off the back of what Jay said on the video, right? Because they supported Jay. They like Jay. They like what he says. They believe what he says. They think Jay has done his due diligence before he puts his name to things. And then they go ahead and follow blindly. And the same sort of stuff is happening here with Roger, right? You've got to be very careful when you're making these kinds of videos. You've got an obligation, whether you like it or not, to the people that are watching your videos. You need to make sure that what you say is fair and true, and you've done your work, and you're making sure that you're not exposing these people to unnecessary risk, because they like you, they follow you, they're going to listen to what you say. You need to be very careful what you put your name to. So I'm not sure if I said already, it either means that Roger is very, very dumb because he hasn't used the app himself. He said all those things in that video and hasn't followed what the app actually does, because if he would have used it, he would have known within 5 minutes that it's a piece of shit. And I'm sure most of you watching now, if you've gone and used it, you'll see the same thing. It's really crap. I like the idea behind it. I like the innovation. I like the challenge to the industry. But when you're charging that kind of money and then the app works the way it does, it is really inconsistent in my personal experience. I don't think it's worth a dime. So I wouldn't spruik that to my viewers. Right? And some of you might say, well, Daniel, you've spoken about OCE Grading, which is a grading company here in Australia. You said to people to go out and sub with them. How is this any different? Well, if you go back and watch that video, you'll see a clear difference, in my opinion, on how you should be handling things like that when it comes to sponsorships, so on and so forth, versus how this guy handled it. If you go back and watch that video, I say to you, Like, this is not here to replace PSA. You're not going to get any value out of PSA. It's purely for PC. It costs $8 a card in their lowest fee. Use them for your PC stuff. You're not going to find better value. That's purely what I said, right? I'm not saying you're going to make money by using these slabs. These slabs are better than anything on the market. Their grades are better than anything on the market. I don't say anything along those lines. I purely say, if you love your PC stuff, use these guys for your PC, because it's $8 a card. If you want to put it on your shelf, you're not going to find anything better. I did my research before I had the relationship with these guys. So you get what I'm trying to say, right? This guy doesn't look like he's done that. And if he has done that and he still put out that video, that's incredibly disingenuous in my opinion. It's a really shitty thing to do. But it's not surprising when you see what these other guys in the hobby have done lately. And I'm not calling Roger out in particular, okay? Like, I don't like what he's done in this instance, but I don't know the guy. Maybe he has done his work, and maybe he did have a good experience with the app. That's why he did this. But when you've got a big following like that, you need to be doing more to protect these people. Like I said earlier, you have an obligation, whether you like it or not, to look after these people. So the more stuff I see like this, I'm going to keep calling it out because it's unacceptable. You've had so many people, over the last 2 and 3 years, become so large within the hobby, become so prominent within the hobby, off the back of like little effort for big reward, right? Nobody was doing this sort of stuff in the past. So basically everybody blew up, and the ones that did now have huge followers, and people just follow them blindly. These guys have, quit their jobs, they've made YouTube full-time, they've made Instagram full-time, they've made TikTok full-time. So they do this sort of stuff to try and make as much money as possible, to try and protect themselves, manage their own agendas, look after themselves, to try and make sure they don't lose it. Because if they lose it, they go back to having nothing. Which is why you need to be careful with this sort of stuff. You need to be careful with what these people are telling you, right? You need to take their stuff with a grain of salt. You need to make sure that you end up, listening to what they say, but then also do your own research. Make sure you don't get caught out, because there's plenty of people out there that are going to sign up to this thing, even if they only pay 1 month, right? That's $10 down the drain. That might not be a whole lot of money, but for a kid, that could be everything, right? Or it could just ruin the experience of collecting for a kid, right? He could use this, pay the $10, send the card into PSA. It might be his Christmas money as an example, and then he gets screwed over by getting a crappy grade. And then he's got no money to buy more cards, and it might piss him off to the point where he leaves the hobby. And those things are like hypotheticals, right? But you guys get what I'm trying to say. That sort of is the stuff I'm trying to, prevent. And that's why I make these kinds of videos. We need to do better to protect each other. So when we start seeing stuff like this, you need to call it out. And I'm not pressuring you to go after Roger. I'm not saying anything like that. Don't go chase him down. But, voice your concerns when you see stuff like this. Flag it with me. Flag it with the guys at Sports Card Radio. Flag it with, other people that make this kind of content. We need to protect each other. We need to call this sort of stuff out. We need to hold people accountable. Like, it's not okay anymore to be naive and make this kind of video by Roger, right? It's not okay to do that. You need to do your research. You've got 30,000 followers. You're impacting people's lives by pushing out, videos like these sponsorship videos without doing your research. Like, this app is not very good, in my opinion. I think it's very, very crap. I wouldn't use it if somebody paid me to use it. That's how bad it is. It doesn't provide any value. Yeah, it's cool from a database perspective because you scan your cards, it stores them in your collection. But other than that, the grade, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's just an app taking photos. Right? Yeah, it's got AI in there, but come on, guys. We need to be doing better. We need to call this stuff out. So if you see anything else like this, please let me know. I hope you liked the video. Please share your thoughts on this down in the comments below. I think it went a bit longer than I wanted to. I did ramble a little bit there. Let me know if I missed anything. But I just need to make this because I absolutely hate this behavior. I'm not saying Roger has done this intentionally in any way, shape, or form. He could be ignorant. He could be naive, right? Could be just a young guy just trying to protect his own agendas. But at the end of the day, like I said, you've got an obligation, whether you like it or not. People need to be better. These influencers need to be better. They need to stop protecting themselves and start looking after the people that actually support them. It got them into that position of like influence and power in the first place, right? You do look after you guys, your followers, because without them, you're nothing. So that's all I want to say. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.